Let's get to Biden. Says Israel-Hamas ceasefire talks are closer after Qatar shares joint statement.
Negotiators are expected to meet again next week in Cairo, Egypt, to try and secure a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Mediators from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar released a joint statement today after meeting for the second straight day. The statement says the talks were, quote, serious and constructive and were conducted in a positive atmosphere. It also said the teams will continue working on the details of the agreement over the coming days. Meantime, the war in Gaza continues, with Israeli forces ordering new evacuations in parts of the enclave that had previously been designated civilian safe zones. Overnight, dozens of Israeli settlers attacked a Palestinian village in the West Bank, and one person was killed. The White House has urged Israeli authorities to protect all communities, calling the incident unacceptable. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Charlie D'Agata is at the Pentagon. Charlie, what more do we know about today's talks, and where do things stand in terms of a ceasefire?
Yeah, so we don't want to be premature at this precarious point in these ceasefire talks, but as you said, there appears to be progress. President Biden said moments ago, we don't want to jinx this, but we may have something. And then that joint statement, I think, is very telling. It shows a positivity. Yes, the talks have been put on hold for now with the idea that they will resume in Egypt next week. There will be mediators in the meantime working on the technicalities of those talks. It's worth noting that Hamas has not been directly involved in these ceasefire talks, that doesn't derail the talks. In the past, they've spoken through mediators and let their concerns be known. And at the moment...
Wow, how this pogrom somehow broke through the Israeli media. Wonder what's going on. Bro, the irony is that Israeli media covers that shit way more frequently than Western media does. If you meant like broke through the Israeli media, you mean like it got from the Israeli media to Western media? Because the Israeli media is literally on it way more than the Western media is in terms of like all of the war crimes that the Israeli government is engaging in. I'm not giving them props. I'm not talking about like Local Call, 972 magazine. Those guys are incredible. But even like Haaretz, which at times can be liberal Zionist, which at times can be even ultra Zionist, and at times can even be anti-Zionist. These guys, and even Khan, for example, have a closer approach to the actual war crimes. Like they literally cover it in a very diligent manner. American media, on the other hand, absolutely picks and chooses what kind of stories to cover out of Israel, and they refuse to cover some of the worst aspects of the Israeli apartheid. I suspect that part of the reason why they're doing this is, I don't know, maybe like apply pressure. I mean, I don't know what like passed through the filter in this regard in terms of like the new pogroms that are happening in the West Bank. Yeah, but for some reason, everyone, even Bibi and Ben-Gvir, condemned this pogrom while ignoring it and cheering on others. No, Ben-Gvir didn't condemn this pogrom. Ben-Gvir participated in the pogrom. He's the one who went to Al-Aqsa with the settlers. Benjamin Netanyahu is the one who actually shit on Ben-Gvir and said, only I get to do this kind of... Yeah, Itamar Ben-Gvir has never... Wait, what? Smotrich did too, I read? Wait, really? I've never seen Ben-Gvir condemn a pogrom that settlers have done. He's the one giving them the guns. But the origination of this pogrom specifically started with the Al-Aqsa Mosque raid that Ben-Gvir literally did a couple days prior to this last one. Itamar Ben-Gvir is responsible for this and every other pogrom. He has funded and facilitated them. He's given arms to them. He's even advocated to move units over from, you know, border in the Gaza envelope, the border guards over into internal security of the West Bank so that he could conduct these pogroms, which was, you know, a major security flaw. I suspect Smotrich is putting out the statement because he's afraid of sanctions after a violent rampage in the village of Hawara last year. He called for the entire village to be destroyed. The rioters tonight in Jit are in no way related to the settlement and the settlers. They are criminals who should be dealt with by the law enforcement authorities. That's crazy. Like shocking. We build and develop the settlement in a legal and state manner, support the IDF in its fight against terrorism, and strongly disapprove any manifestation of anarchistic criminal violence that has nothing to do with loving the land and settling in it. Yeah, I don't know what the this guy's talking about. All settlements are illegal, dog. Maybe yeah, I think Benzi's take on this is probably correct. Maybe they are experiencing the international organs of justice pressure
Piker could go
with like additional focus on what's going on in Israel. So they're like, oh, this is bad, this one is bad, every other one is good, but this one is bad, even though we did all the other ones and supported it.
Anyway, and this is all part of the negotiating scheme. Hamas has rejected the implementation of the talks as they stand now. They want to go back to something, the July 2nd talks, and this is something that was put forward by the Biden administration. They say they want to go back to that. But this is just sort of horse trading before we get into those more serious talks in Egypt. But by all accounts, it looks as if progress has been made. I mean, one reporter said they've made more progress in the past 48 hours than they've made in the past 6 weeks.
Wow. Okay. Well, sliver of good news there. CBS News can confirm there was a phone conversation today between Qatari and Iranian authorities. We've been reporting on this potential imminent retaliatory attack from Iran. What do we know about that call?
Yeah, so this is important, okay, because I'm going to tell you why in a moment, but let me read exactly what it says. A source with knowledge of the conversation told CBS News the Qatari's PM and FM foreign minister did encourage Iran to avoid any escalation going forward in the talks in Doha. Mentioned there was some progress made.
This is such a funny take. If the Pentagon is happy, I'm happy. Same. Me too, chatter. Me too.
And stressed the need for these ongoing talks to be given a chance. What this tells you is that the Iranians are closely monitoring these talks, if not perhaps influencing these talks from the outside.
Yes, dude. They're literally saying we have an international right, we have a right to retaliate as backed by international law. And we will. But we do not want to up these ceasefire negotiations. They literally are saying that. They have said it. They openly stated that despite the fact that they do have the internationally recognized right to retaliate to Israel for violating Iranian sovereignty by killing the principal negotiator on the Palestinian side on Iranian soil, that they are not doing that because they are demonstrating restraint that Israel has never demonstrated, because Israel doesn't have to demonstrate any restraint because America is defending Israel's right to do whatever the fuck it wants. This opens up an additional vector of pressure on the talks. There is no way that the American authorities can use that as a negative. Oh, dude, I can't believe Iran is not retaliating because they want to influence the talks. Yeah, in a direction where peace can be achieved. It's so crazy. Like, Iranian domestic policy being absolute dog shit aside, like morality police or any number of different like forms of repression that they apply to their own citizens. Iranian foreign policy is like, it's like that meme of the people sitting in a circle, like in a crowd versus like the people fighting. Iranian domestic policy might be ass cheeks, but in terms of foreign policy, like they are literally infinitely better than Israel. Infinitely. It's not even a question. It's just ridiculous. There is no way that you can turn around and make it seem like these guys are not doing the right thing in this situation.
And it may be one of the reasons that they've been holding fire about that retaliation. Another big reason is there's huge buildup of U.S. forces in the region. So you get the USS Theodore Roosevelt, that's a carrier strike group. Another one is on the way, should be there in the next few days. You've got a submarine capable of launching 150 plus cruise missiles. Their F-22
their domestic policy is nowhere near as bad as Western media makes it out to be. No, it's pretty bad. Come on, dude.
Fighter jets that are already in the neighborhood, F-18 fighter jets that are already within striking distance.
Like, if they were doing that shit in America, you would literally not be considering that to be appropriate at all.
F-35s are on the way with that new carrier strike group coming in. There are 40,000 U.S. forces in the region as we speak. All of this has been done. When you speak to people in this building,
like, it's like the Turkey equation. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that the Turkish government does that is completely unconscionable. It's beyond the pale, and every Turkish person will tell you that. Every single Turkish person will tell you that. This does not mean that like America gets to bomb Turkey. You know what I mean? Obviously, it won't happen because Turkey's a part of NATO. But like, it's just not. It's not even remotely reasonable. Like, Turkey, for example, does not have any free speech, right? That's already pretty shitty, and the Turkish government absolutely abuses that to its advantage to quash any kind of dissent, silence any kind of dissent by any means necessary, oftentimes by invoking criminal penalties. Same goes for Iran in terms of many different forms of restrictions and repression. It's not like the government is super positive or popular in Iran either. How the fuck would they be? Why would they be? Come on, dude. They're led by mullahs. Like, what are we talking about? Wow, Ben Shapiro was right. If only we had given Israel more money, all of this could have been avoided. I know. Unlimited funds to Israel, please. They need more platinum healthcare, okay? If you do it here, I'll kill you. But if you but if you give Israel all of its defense capabilities so that they have more funds that they can open up to, like, you know, do healthcare for their own citizens, then that's great.
It's done as a deterrent for Iran or Hezbollah. I'll mention that in a second, and also for the defense, primarily the defense of U.S. forces who have been coming under attack in the region, but also for the defense of Israel. The big question mark here, yes, the thinking here is that Iran will hold fire until we see the conclusion of these talks. What we don't know is what Hezbollah is going to do, because Hezbollah has threatened retaliation.
Yeah, dude, what do you mean? I thought Hezbollah was also jumping when Iran said, or I thought Hezbollah was saying how high when Iran says jump. Now they're like, oh, but Hezbollah is a different actor. Oh, now they have autonomy. Okay, got it.
We're not exactly sure how much communication is going on. You know, Hezbollah is an Iranian-backed group, how much that is done in coordination with the Iranians, or if they'll wait. What we can...
You always say Turkey and Iran include China and Cuba in the freedom of speech. Yeah, in terms of like Chinese restrictions, okay, they are nowhere near as limited as, like, I would say Turkish restrictions are or Iranian restrictions are. Like, social repression does exist in China, okay, certainly. And I don't agree with it, especially because it's a power player in its own right, okay? It's damn near a hegemonic power at this point. So they don't need that level of repression and restrictions, especially in terms of free speech. However, when it comes to Cuba, you have no comparison. When it comes to Cuba, you have absolutely zero way to compare Cuban existence and the Cuban governance and Cuban free speech restrictions to, like, a country like America, because Cuba has been in a permanent state of economic war, being a small island nation in the ass cheeks of the largest hegemonic imperialist superpower on the planet throughout history. America has waged war both directly and indirectly through the form of economic sanctions, full-blown sanctions since the Cuban Revolution, against this island nation. Of course, they are constantly worried. This kind of repression happens as a consequence of this kind of repression happens in a defensive measure. America and many other countries in wartime have also done similar things. That's why we have the Treason Act, you know what I mean? Espionage Act, sorry. Like, where do you think that comes from? Now imagine having that be a permanent blight on your existence with the largest superpower on the planet constantly attacking you. How can you say that without having compassion for the people in Cuba who were arrested? I think this is like the most cynical way to have this conversation. If you have compassion for the people of Cuba, then you should be advocating, as I do every single day, to end the embargo. Okay, it's incredible.
I can tell you is Hezbollah is already in a position to strike at little or no notice. They've already got the weaponry there. They've already done it, as we've seen over the past few days. Iran, too, can perform a limited strike with their positioning. So the big question mark now is what Hezbollah does. Are they going to follow suit, as we believe the Iranians will?
Are you saying that tough economic ties justify restrictions on freedom of speech? No, I'm saying that restrictions on freedom of speech historically has occurred in times of war in every country, including the United States of America. So if you can understand restrictions on freedom of speech in the United States of America during times of war like World War II, for example, then you should be, and many of those restrictions have continued into now, as a matter of fact, then you should be able to at least comprehend why a government would try to limit. It's not a justification. Yes, it's an explanation as to why they have it. You're getting it. Exactly. Analysis does not mean justification. This is not an excuse. This is the reason as to why they limit communication, especially when the United States of America has never stopped trying to interfere in Cuban affairs, like ever, consistently, through direct intervention, through indirect intervention, by making it as unlivable as possible. So, you know, if you can comprehend how America, such a powerful nation, was limiting their own free speech, okay, and still does at the behest of Israel, for example, which is crazy. But even in times of war, America's has taken incredibly restrictive actions on free speech. Then, you know, all Cuba has known is permanent warfare with the largest superpower on the planet. The counter to Cuba is always, do you want Cuba to be Haiti? You know, that's it. That's what happens with endless, ceaseless foreign intervention. Ceaseless foreign intervention that actually succeeds. It's pretty easy to justify lifting the embargo in my mind, but why do we have it? War on communism is dead. I don't know, pettiness, anger, resentment, cruelty. War on communism is dead, ha ha. I mean, it kind of is. There is no like, I don't know, there is no like massive communist superpower on the planet in the same way that the USSR existed as a counterbalance to capitalism. I wouldn't say China plays that role. Like, I think China is self-interested and will create allegiances with those who have been destroyed, create allegiances with its trade partners, engage in a lot of soft power initiatives, but I don't think that they have like a vested ideological interest in like growing communism or socialism or socialist movements. They have a gimme with like Maoists in the Philippines, for example. They don't touch that shit. They are directly in contest with them. If they wanted to, even if they wanted to do like America style intervention in the Philippines, I think that they could easily use Maoist revolutionary groups in the Philippines, arm them, train them, continue indoctrination in the communist variety. There are plenty of popular socialist movements around the world that they could be funding and facilitating. They don't really do that. They don't do that at all. They will literally, in Myanmar, for example, work with both sides. They'll work with the military junta when they want to, and then they'll work with the revolutionary student groups when they want to. It's all entirely related to what their immediate goals are. They're like, oh, they're doing, they have these like groups of people that are kidnapping Chinese citizens. We have to deal with them. Boom. All of a sudden, they're now arming the rebellion after arming the military junta and defending the military junta beforehand. My coworker from Taiwan said the struggles of LATAM are purely due to incompetence, and blaming U.S. foreign policy was failing to take accountability. Use all Taiwanese success as a product of them being more competent. That's so funny. That is pretty funny. That's like a very Han Chinese ass attitude to have, like subtle Han Chinese superiority ass take, which also firmly in the pocket of like American vested interest, but that is like incredibly Han Chinese supremacist of him to assume that like that's why Taiwan is so successful. Anyway,
will in holding off with any large-scale retaliation until these talks either continue or conclude.
CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie Daggett, thank you so much.
Taiwan is successful. It's pretty successful, dude. What do you mean? I mean, what are we talking about? Why wouldn't it be? It's like a permanent staple in undermining Chinese sovereignty in the region. Yes, and microchips. Haitian chatter here. The reason why Haiti is so destabilized is because of constant Western intervention all over the years, and it's still doing interventions, but through violent proxies. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what Haiti is. What happens when America and Western nations actually succeed in the intervention and directly intervene. Okay, we're not done with the Israel stuff though. A couple things I need to show you.
Well, you want to see a two-state solution, but I mean, Smotrich himself said in announcing the settlement, we'll continue to fight the dangerous idea of a Palestinian state and establish facts on the ground. This is my life's mission, and I will continue it as much as I can. So that's what you're up against when you're saying you oppose the building of these settlements. Clearly, this will go ahead, and it will not just go ahead, but it will go ahead in occupied territory where you are arming the military force which will facilitate its establishment. So you're saying you oppose it, but you're arming the military force that facilitates its establishment.
We have a security relationship with the IDF, Tom. I don't dispute that. That of course continues to be the case.
How is building a settlement about self-defense of Green Line sovereign Israel?
Dude, the State Department journalists consistently are my favorite people in American media. Like the ones that actually you watch clips from, not the ones that like oftentimes work for the New York Times and like verbatim carbon copy whatever the John Kirby is saying on any given day. But like the dudes, most of these dudes are just like constantly ripping in to all of the statements that they're bringing forward, oftentimes showcasing the inhumanity of it, the hypocrisy of it all. Not that it moves the needle, but you know.
We don't think it is, Tom. We do not think that the expansion of the settlement program is in Israel's security interest. We think it detracts from a two-state solution and causes further instability and insecurity. I've said these things a number of times. The point that I'm making is that these are not actions that the United States is party to. Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I asked about Ben Gvir and what he's done on the Temple Mount, and to Tom's question, you mentioned tools and the U.S. toolkit. The U.S. hasn't used any tools in that toolkit. And I just want to understand,
Yeah, what's that about? Dude, America, God, dude. We talked about the sanctions as a means of waging war, right? Jeff Stein's reporting on Washington Post is incredible. He also gave a phenomenal interview to both Democracy Now! And also the Chapo Boys. As you guys know, I've talked extensively on this matter. 60% of the nations on the planet are incurring some form of sanctions by the United States of America. The overwhelming majority of the poorest nations on the planet, overwhelming majority of the poorest nations on the planet have some kind of sanctions from the United States of America. That is a tool. Where the is this tool when it comes to Israel? Where is the tool? We use it for everyone all the time. 60% of the poorest nations, 60% of the poorest nations on the planet. Oh, this wasn't about the pogrom and JIT. It was about the announcement by the CA of a new settlement near the Palestinian village of Batir. It would sit directly on a Palestinian. Oh, it's the UNESCO World Heritage Site one. You're right. Okay. Yeah, that one is like additional insult to injury. Yeah, they're trying to set up a new, Israel's trying to set up a new settlement on a UNESCO World Heritage Site, dude. It's crazy. What is this? Canadian doctors who volunteered in Gaza tell the story of a doctor who was forced to strip naked and stand for 2 days by Israeli forces urinating and defecating where he stood. IDF should look into it. I don't have more information. Why would Israel target and kill a grandmother, a mom, and 3-day-old twins? I don't have any information. I'll let IDF speak to its own operations. We love playing fast and loose with like the autonomy that Israel has in times of like all of their war crimes. When push comes to shove and we're defending Israel's war crimes, is like, well, they're a nation on their own. But when it comes down to unlimited weapons transfers, it's like, no, they could not survive without us. Are you crazy? They could not survive without us. What do you mean? What the Hey now, don't you dare.
Is that because these are U.S. government officials? These are also U.S. government officials that Netanyahu...
You mean Israeli officials?
Sorry, Israeli government officials that you wouldn't use... You know, is that because you can't use US?
So Camilla, I would never preview actions from up here that would be inappropriate. Not
but
just
I only bring
in the
it up
context.
because you mentioned the toolkit.
Of course,
so.
not just in the context of Israel, but in any country. I wouldn't preview actions from up here. Look, when it comes to there are across the world, when it comes to governments that we engage with, whether they be partners, allies, or countries that we have adversarial relationships with, there are colorful characters in any government. What the United States is focused on is the policy and the policy decisions that they pursue and the United States pursue, and particularly when it comes to attempting to subjugate or change the status quo at Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, we would take issue with that, and expansions of a settlement program, we would take issue with that. We find both of these things to be a detraction of Israel's security and fuel more insecurity and instability in the region. And we'll raise these and continue to have these very tough conversations. In terms of what actions we can take, Camilla, I'm not going to preview or speculate from up here.
He's not my least favorite out of, I can't believe I have favorite and least favorite State Department spokespersons, but I think Kirby takes the cake. There's no one that touches Kirby's demon-like status, unimaginable cruelty, absolute worst in the game.
Okay, but it's fair to say that there haven't been any actions taken other than condemning it verbally.
When it comes to officials within the government, sure, that...
It's insane how far the spokesperson will go. First, you have smaller reports come out about the abuse in Sderot Taman, ignored. Then you get the prisoners caught on video in the B'Tselem report, ignored. Today, Haaretz published an article of the former Sderot Taman prison guards describing, no, yeah, all those reports are right. I wish I had their ability to stick their fingers in their ear and say la la la. Yeah, no, it's nuts. I mean, they do more defense for Israel than Israel does, because Israel doesn't usually need to defend itself that much.
Can be a fair assessment to take, but you have seen us particularly...
Okay, shut I can't deal with this. Press corps exposes staunch hypocrisy by State Department spokesperson Vedant Patel. You often condemn Hamas for using Palestinians as human shields. Now there's an investigation saying the Israeli army does the same. Do you condemn Israel for this? These reports are disturbing, but they're just reports at this point. We urge Israel to investigate and determine what's happening. They've literally never had conclusive evidence that Hamas does this, by the way, but like they don't mind saying that Hamas is using human shields. So what make these reports in the Israeli and Hamas using Palestinian human shields as a fact on the ground? Hamas has a track record of using civilians as human shields. That's not hyperbole. No, they don't. Israel does. Hamas does not. Israel claims Hamas does, and you just say, okay, I guess it's the truth then. Why is he not saying, well, let Hamas investigate itself? That's such a funny idea. We must let Hamas investigate itself for these war crime human shield allegations. Joseph Borrell Fontella is the High Representative for the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Vice President of the EU Commission, says, we condemn settler attacks in JIT aimed at terrorizing Palestinian civilians day after day in almost total impunity. The Israeli settlers fuel violence in the occupied West Bank, contributing to endanger any chance of peace. The Israeli government, first of all, continuing to endanger any chance of peace is so funny. It's like their existence beyond their offensive positioning as doing pogroms is already endangering any chance of peace. The Israeli government must stop these unacceptable actions immediately. I confirm my intention to table a proposal for EU sanctions against violent settlers enablers, including some in the Israeli government's members. Yeah, good luck. I doubt it.